What is going on, guys? My name is Jack McNeil of BaseballCentral.com, at Jack McNeil44 on Twitter. Let's get right to it here. The St. Louis Cardinals have had a very disappointing offseason, and more bad news for you Cardinal fans as you guys are really getting restless here. The Cardinals are not making any big moves after losing out on David Price and Jason Hayward to the Chicago Cubs, nonetheless, after the Cardinals offered $200 million, $80 million more than their franchise record for a contract, which was Matt Holliday after the 09 season. Jason Hayward was their guy. David Price they were really reaching for. They wanted to get Price to solidify this rotation, to get another ace in the NL Central, to see Price dominate the Central. Price goes with the money, $217 million from the Red Sox. Not surprising. They just simply got outbid, which a big market team outbidding a mid-sized market team, not surprising. What was a bit surprising was Jason Hayward choosing to go to the Chicago Cubs over the Cardinals after spending a full season with the Cardinals last year, after the Cardinals traded their young promising starter in Shelby Miller for Jason Hayward, and then offering him exactly what he wanted, $200 million. What they could not offer him was what he really wanted, to win the World Series. No, I mean, the St. Louis Cardinals have an opportunity to be a winning team for the next few years. They're still a very, very good team, one of the best in the National League, and I think you could point to their offense and say they've improved in enough areas naturally, internally, that they could have a better offense than last year. In fact, I would be surprised if they didn't have a better offense than last year. They were 26 last year in runs in the National League. You add a whole season of Matt Holliday, a full season of Randall Grichuk, who hit 17 home runs in 100 games, a full season of Stephen Piscotty, if that's the direction they go in right field now that they lose out on Hayward. Not a bad option there. You know, he was the most productive hitter for the St. Louis Cardinals in his short time on the big league roster. And then you add Matt Adams, who was projected to hit over 30 home runs a few years ago at first base and platooning with Brandon Moss. If in the middle infield you're having troubles with Colton Wong or Johnny Peralta or even Matt Carpenter, you can slide in Jed Jerko to any of those middle infield positions, and he can get some work done. So, again, the St. Louis Cardinals offense, I think, is actually a little deeper than it was last year, and their options off the bench are a lot better. I mean, you were looking at Pete Kozma and Peter Borges and a few others off the bench last year. Now you're looking at Brandon Moss, Jed Jerko, and Brian Pena for a backup catcher to give Yadier Molina some rest. So I think the Cardinals have done actually a pretty good job, an efficient job, at maximizing their offensive abilities at bat by at bat. Where they have not done a good job, at least thus far, is on the pitching market. And that really boils down to simply getting outbid by the Red Sox and David Price. If they get David Price, you're adding a 6 to 7 win player, even if you have to overpay for the last few years of a contract. At that point, a lot of the other contracts that the Cardinals have now would be off the books, and hopefully you'd have some freed up financial abilities throughout those years as well. But David Price is your guy moving forward. Adam Wainwright, 33 years old. You want a guy like David Price to slide into that rotation, become that ace, a rotation that starts off of Price, Wainwright, Martinez, Walker, Garcia. I mean, there's a number of ways you can go at it, and then Lynn, of course, would be coming back after this year. So David Price would have been a move built now and for the future, and might have been enough to convince Jason Hayward to stay with the Cardinals. At least that would be my thinking. If you get Price, you're serious. You're not kidding around here. And the Cubs appear to be very serious about winning the division in 2016. They didn't think that they could withhold their success. They outperformed their own projections, last season. I think they realized if they want to be as good as that last year, winning 97 games or even better, they have to take it to the next level. This was not their offseason to spend a bunch of money, but they spent enough to really improve their team. Maybe their ballpark too. I'm sure they're still doing renovations. But getting Ben Zobrist at second and offsetting a lot of that contract that they brought on with Zobrist by trading away Castro. Good move there. They still have depth in the middle infield unless they trade Baez for a pitcher. Soler might be on the market as well. So they're looking for a starting pitcher still, but they got the Cardinals' best pitcher from last year in John Lackey on a pretty cheap deal. And now the Cardinals are left wondering, well, what pitcher can I get? Cueto's gone, even though, not likely they would have signed him. Leak, he wants to go out west, and the Cardinals have expressed interest in not wanting to go over a few year deal, which is another problem for the Cardinals. You can't expect to get the top free agents if you're not going to go long-term with them. The only guys they've been willing to go long-term with thus far have been the guys that they have not won on. So you lose on Hayward and Price, and all of a sudden, you still have needs in the pitching area. You might still have needs offensively for that transformative bat. But you know, you're not going to be able to get a very, very good player or a great player because you're not willing to go long term. So right now, the St. Louis Cardinals are in an interesting position. I don't think they necessarily need an urgent help on offense. I think offensively they could be okay. If they need to acquire someone during the trade deadline, we will see. But the St. Louis Cardinals, sure. Could they use another power back? Could they use someone like Justin Upton or even Cespedes? Yeah. I think the problem is they've already committed to the outfield they have now. I mean, if they're not going to sign Hayward, there was already going to be some confusion with where Piscotty plays, this and that. You commit to the outfield you have now, and you move on. Where the Cardinals can really improve, though, is their starting rotation. And right now, unless they want to go for a 4 or 5 year deal with Mike Leake or someone of that nature, an option of Scott Kazmir or Chen, or there's a few other arms that could make sense. Doug Fister, you know, a situation where he can kind of reclaim himself and prove himself. So you could go with 1 or 2 starters on a 1 or 2 year deal if you can get that done. They may have to wait later into the offseason to get something done. But for Cardinal fans wishing and hoping and waiting for them to sign Alex Gordon and Johnny Cueto is now off the board. For Cardinal fans waiting for them to get the best free agents available after Jason Hayward and David Price had signed, think again. I think the Cardinals realize they're going to have to compete for years and years. They're going to have to build long-term stability. And to do that, they're not going to go on the market, this free agent market, and spend a ton of money on 5 or 6 year deals with guys that are 30 or 31 years old. They have a lot of young guys still coming up through the system. They're going to jump at the next opportunity to get a 28 to 30-year-old impact player on a long-term deal. They absolutely will if it's a right fit. David Price and Jason Hayward happen to be the right fit, and they simply got outdone. But watch out for them in years coming, because if they have a lot of money this offseason, that means they'll have a lot of money throughout and through the trade deadline and for years to come. I think by not partaking in these long-term deals, they will have more money to play with, obviously, since they're not spending that money. That being said, for this upcoming season, they will have to get a starting pitcher. They will have to shore up some of the pitching. Just in case one of those guys gets hurt, because every starter of theirs has some injury risk attached to them. And if they can swing a trade for an outfielder like Carlos Gonzalez, if they can find a way to trade Matt Holliday and get creative with the roster, that's the only way I see them being able to add a transformative bat without really upsetting the rest of the roster, because they have 2 guys at first base and potentially 3. They have a few guys who can play different positions in the middle infield and already have a middle infield settled, and they have a full outfield. And that was with trading John Jay. So the Cardinals are in a position where if they can fit a transformative bat, they're going to have to get very creative with their roster. Even if they would have signed Jason Hayward, it would be, where's Piscotty playing? Why isn't he getting enough at-bats? And then you'd have a situation where maybe you'd have to trade Matt Adams for a pitcher. So if they would have signed Hayward, they might have traded one of their excess bats anyway. Now that they haven't, they're going to have to give their guys a chance. And that means Matt Adams is going to be playing, and Brandon Moss and Steve Piscotty. And I don't have a problem with that. Again, I think their offensive line should be improved from last year, although the lineup doesn't look as menacing. Where they really need to improve on, if they can, is find a way to get some bargain buys in the starting pitching market, and hopefully this plays out well. I know, it sucks. You're a Cardinals fan. You're hoping they win 100 games last year. You're hoping they're going to go out and get Price and get Hayward and dominate the Central for years to come, or at least compete with the Cubs. But now it's starting to look more and more that the Cubs are going to take this division next year, and the Cardinals don't care. That is the attitude that fans are kind of getting from the St. Louis Cardinals team. I wouldn't think of it this way. They definitely got unlucky on this free agent market. They put 2 record franchise offers on the table, and it didn't work out. The Cardinals are going to move on. They're going to use their young players that they've been using. It's a model that has been winning. They're not going to go out and spend stupidly on the free agent market, and when an opportunity comes, they will take it. Mark my words, the St. Louis Cardinals will be competitive next year. It's not this idea that the Cubs all of a sudden just got it. I mean, they will be very competitive, but they're not going to go on the free agent market and make dumb moves. Thanks for watching. Let me know what you think the Cardinals should be doing right now. This seems to be a pivotal offseason. If they make some long-term commitments, they might be regretting it in years to come. But if they don't do anything, will they be competitive enough to win the NL Central, or to get a wild card next year with Arizona and all these other teams stepping up their game and pushing competition forward? So let me know what you guys think. Again, at JackMcNeil44 on Twitter, or just comment below on the YouTube video. Thanks so much, guys.